specifically decided to pursue a career in blockchain?
Okay, so first of all, thank you for the opportunity, and thank you that I can address women because I'm so passionate about women's empowerment. So you have to understand that I've been in finance all my life, and I won't tell you how old I am, but I'm a grandmother, so just picture that.
Nice.
Okay, so my children had kids early. Okay, I'm lying, but it doesn't matter. Okay, I'm joking. The point is that I've been in finance all my life. Why did I become a chartered accountant? Because I've seen a lot of corruption in the world. So I was convinced that if you are an accountant and you can help accountants to improve accounting and auditing standards, you can help the world to become more, less corrupt. So
Right.
my first job after being in auditing was at the Institute of Chartered Accountants. I was the technical director. I was setting audit and accounting standards. I did that for 8 years. Then I joined the World Bank. I wanted to go and save the world. Wow! Save the world, And then I go to the World Bank. And first of all, I have to say that we didn't achieve anything at the Institute because there's still corruption and there's still audit failures and there's still all these frauds, and everybody depends on an auditor to come and save you, and the auditors can't. So the problem is there's this concept of the expectation gap. What the auditor can do and what the public expects, there's a massive gap. And then I'll go to the World Bank thinking, oh, wow, I'm going to save the world. The World Bank is not saving anybody. It's creating more problems than saving anybody, okay? Because I can write a book about the World Bank. So just trust me, it's not working. Then I joined a company which I created in South Africa, which is called the Central Securities Depository. What did we do? We took all the trades from the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. We settle them. We take the trades and the money and we swap them digitally, totally electronically. Okay? But we centralized all the functions. We also were the regulators of the market. So we regulated the brokers, the banks, the custodian banks, and anybody providing custody services. So everything very centralized, and I was the CEO for 20 years. And there were a lot of things that we couldn't do. What couldn't we do? If you were an investor, you wouldn't know if your positions on a real-time basis. It will take 3 days for the transactions to settle. If you were a listed company, you wouldn't know who's trading your shares. Why? Because the way that the whole system was built was to actually create nominee accounts. We didn't have the complete register, name on register of the investor. So there were many problems. So just imagine, 2015, after 20 years of running this company, I read Satoshi's paper. And why did I cry? Because Satoshi said, guys, listen, you had a financial crisis in 2008. We nearly destroyed the financial world. Okay, I was the CEO of this company when the crisis happened. Just imagine the fear, the stress that the market was going to have systemic risk in South Africa for investors because of what happened in America and Europe and Asia. So then I reached Satoshi, and Satoshi says, guys, you need to completely change your paradigm. We're going to not centralize. We're not going to trust all these intermediaries, central securities depositories, central banks, the brokers, the stock exchange. No. They created the financial crisis. It doesn't work. They still rely on auditors. The auditors cannot give you certainty of anything because there's still that gap. So Satoshi says, what if we decentralize the records? What if everybody can see the records at the same time? So now you've got a real-time verification and audit of these records called blockchain. And what if we have a currency that nobody can abuse? Bitcoin is only 21 million, not generated by a central bank, by a central authority. It's completely transferable. It's fungible. You can achieve privacy. You can achieve mobility. And what if we do that for the world? And therefore, you don't need to open a bank account. You just have to go to the internet and download a wallet and buy the currency. and you can keep it in your wallet under your control without having to justify to anybody what you're doing. So then it was for me a change of life, because I thought everything I tried to do in my life since I was a young woman of 22 years old, everything I felt I had failed because I had not achieved anything in terms of reducing corruption. And here Satoshi says, because you've been doing it all wrong. It's not centralization, it's decentralization. And we're going to use the internet, not Swift messages, not the banks. This internet of value is going to give you the tools accessible to anyone, no matter who you are. If you're a woman, wherever you live, it doesn't matter. You will have access to the internet, and you can do and empower yourself to protect yourself from fraud and corruption and governments that don't make any sense and that you cannot trust them. And you have the mobility. You want to leave Afghanistan in a hurry, you can leave. You can leave. You can leave with your money by remembering the seed word. So do you understand why it was a no-brainer that I went to my board and said, guys, I can't stay here. I don't believe in this company anymore. This company is going to eventually die because something much more beautiful is going to replace it, that is going to give freedom for investors to have their own token of securities, tokens of real estate, token of music, art, pictures, anything, and at their own control. No more having to trust the company I was running or the brokers or the banks to do everything for them, or auditors or the central bank or the stock exchange. Self-sovereign, the individuals will have the freedom to create wealth for themselves without having to ask permission. So do you understand that for me it was I had to leave. Even though I was very well paid and I was the queen in the castle, I thought I'm joining the plebs and I'm going to go and change the world. And that's why I left.
Thank you so much, Harmony. What is the best way to address you?
Monica.
Monica is great. All right, great. Yeah, so thanks for doing this, and I enjoyed the introduction you gave. Right, it's really interesting to learn about your journey, and then to see the kind of conviction you have in blockchain and what it can do for the world at large. My name is Sheon Oluwa Sheon. That's the full name. I am the lead editor of Mariblock, and for this. For what we're working on right now is, as Ogi must have mentioned earlier, our focus is on how blockchain, can help, foster gender equality, right? Because it's the season to have that. I mean, it's always the season to have that discussion, but it's a season to remind people more than ever before, right? So, and I think just based off what you've just said, right? What was your first experience when getting into the blockchain space and the sense of gender equality? Did it feel different from working in the traditional space, right? I'm sure you can relate to maybe some gender prejudice you must have experienced over your career, and then getting into the blockchain. And I understand you got into the blockchain space as an very experienced woman. But just if you could just share a little bit if there's anything you would like to point out.
The most important thing is that in the current society that we live, in general, women have to ask permission. Do you understand? We always rely on someone to give us permission to be part of. If you work in corporate, you have to ask permission. You have to fight to have more women on boards, more women to be employed, all those stories, okay? Because society has what is called unconscious bias. What is unconscious bias? You employ people that are like you, no? So if the board is made up of white males, trust me, they're going to employ more white males to the board. They're going to be allergic to any type of woman, whatever the color. So then you have to have, I belong at ConsenSys, the company I work for. I'm on the council of the DEI Council, which is the Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Council, which fights to get at least 30% or more woman representation in ConsenSys. We are trying, but the executive is still very much male-dominated because this industry is still very much dominated by males. Why? Because it started being a business mainly driven by the techies, the developers, the engineers, and whatever. And in general, women have not been very keen to study STEM, which is the science and technology and all of these mathematics. But if you just put aside everything to do with science, okay? Put aside whether or not you're an engineer or not. Just think about it, that this technology, Web 3.0, talks about permissionless. That means that now women, no matter where they live, no matter their cultures, they can now, on their own, without asking permission, they can go into the web, download MetaMask, the wallet, and they can buy, sell, without asking permission to anyone. And then the most incredible thing that happened to me was that when I fell in love with Satoshi's paper, I thought, oh wow, I need to study everything that it's written on the topic. And guess what? I didn't go to university, even though I'm a chartered accountant, but to be a blockchain expert, there was no course, there was no degrees, there was nothing available in 2016, 2017. So what did I do? I started subscribing to anything I could find, any newsletters, any podcasts, anything that was out there, YouTubes, anything, and I started studying every night. After work, I would sit and do 2 to 3 hours of reading everything that was available. And I did it on my own. I didn't ask permission. Everything was available for free in the internet. I didn't have to pay for a course. I didn't have to have permission, nothing. It was self-taught. And in life, what we learn is a lifelong learning. What made you successful in the past won't make you successful in the future. So all my knowledge of having run companies in finance, traditional finance, all those good things that I did, counted was zero. Nothing that I knew before helped me understand this new world order, because it's chalk and cheese, it's totally different. But because the information is free and available in the internet, with the commitment, passion, and discipline, every night I would study about blockchain. And slowly but surely, I started understanding what works, what doesn't work, what currency to buy, how to buy it, how to trade, how to sell. And then what I decided to do is everything I'm learning, I'm going to teach. So that's why you were saying that you find me in YouTube, because I love teaching. And I don't know if you noticed that my lectures are not techie lectures. They are very basic blockchain 101, so that I can empower anybody to become financially independent. Independent from any intermediary, even independent from your partner, your husband. Girls are raised with the concept that someone is going to come and save them. The damsel in distress. Don't worry, your husband will come and support you and provide for you until he doesn't, and then you sit in with the babies on your own. So all my life I knew I had to be financially independent. And now you have additional technology that gives you the freedom to do this. So that's why I encourage women to learn the basics. They don't have to learn deep nothing. It's like, if I tell you, do you know that the internet is built on a technology called TCP/IP? And you're going to say, really? I didn't know. And I'm going to say, you know what? Who cares? Do you know how to send an email? Yes. That's all you need to know. Just don't worry about blockchain and the big words, smart contracts or whatever, or wallets, call or hot. Just learn how to use it. So if I had to teach you how to use it, it wouldn't be that complicated, because really today the user experience is becoming easier and easier. So there's certain basics that you need to know, and you mustn't give money to an intermediary. You need to learn yourself, and you start learning starting with little money, 100 naira, whatever, very little, so that if you make a mistake, it's only school fees that you lose. But everything is free and available in the internet. So why would this not be a tool for empowering anybody, not just women, It can empower anybody. But what we need to do to women is to now encourage them to feel that they can do it. Because just remember, this concept that we were told by our parents and society, you don't need to worry, your husband and someone is going to come and save you. We need to change the narrative. No, you're going to save yourself. And you're going to be able to do it because it's available in the internet, and you don't need to go to a fancy university to become financially independent. So that is what we need to change.
All right, great. Thank you so much for that exhaustive answer. And I just listening to you, I think from your perspective, right, one of the first benefits, and I think it's been overflogged already, or it's been talked about enough, is that, you know, from the perspective of financial independence, right? For the first time, maybe probably in history, women don't need to ask for permission to do something, especially in this space. But you said something which I also think is very important. You mentioned how STEM has historically been a male thing, right? And I pretty much while I understand that it can be a tool for financial independence from the fact that I'm just interacting with the cryptocurrency. But there's also the part of working in the space, actually building in the space, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and which is where, you know, that STEM kind of background kind of comes into place, right? What is your view about? Because I'm sure there is still like a gender equality gap there, right? What is your view, and how do you think that can be bridged?
Yeah. So let me give you a little story. When I was a young woman and I decided to be a chartered accountant, there were no women studying to be a chartered accountant. And the few that were at university with me, you know what they did when they finished the degree? They got married and they stopped working. I always said to my friends, the woman that studied to be a chartered accountant, I said, what? You hang the degree in the kitchen and you watch your degree melt away while you were cooking. No? That was my generation. Why? Because first we were told we couldn't study. Then once we decided to study, we were told that certain professions were not for women. Then we got the profession and then we were told, no, you need to get married and you need to have children and you have to stay home to raise the children. No? Because your husband will provide for you. Just imagine what a waste. All these women that study to be incredible professionals, my generation told them, you need to stay home and raise your children. I'm sorry. I never stopped working, ever, you know? And I have beautiful children. They're not drug addicts. They're not alcoholics. They are very good adults making a living independently from me, and they're very happy. So that story that, if you work, your children will be alcoholics is rubbish. Okay. So can you see, I'm not being funny. I'm being honest, because all my life I was faced with the pressure from society to tell me what I couldn't do. You know, I'll give you an example. Yes, I didn't go to all the rugby games. Yes, I didn't go to the ballet. And the mothers that were not working will say, we missed you at the ballet yesterday. Where were you? And I was like, at a board meeting, I couldn't attend the ballet. You know what? My daughter didn't suffer any trauma because I didn't participate in that ballet. So, what I'm being honest, because I'm sorry, I feel very strongly that women get brainwashed to be told that like guilt tripping. So coming back to your question, okay, I had to give you the background. Coming back to your question, how many girls are told you need to study science, technology, and mathematics? Very few. Why? Because they're told, no, you're going to be, if you want to study something, I think you should be a nurse or a teacher or I don't know what other professions society thinks is more a PA, a secretary, marketing, human resources, no? But God forbid if someone tells you, I want to be a scientist, or an accountant or an engineer. So that's what we need to do. We need more role models of women like me and other successful women that we can show that you can study mathematics. Because if you do, like today, if, one of my children is a chartered accountant, the other one is a lawyer. But to my grandchildren, I'm going to say to them, guys, you don't study chartered accountant and lawyer I wanted to study engineering, software engineering. Why? Because that's the future. The future is digital. The future is the fourth industrial revolution. Blockchain, artificial intelligence, robotics, big data. Even accountants they're going to exist, but they're not going to be existing in the same way we exist at the moment, because we're going to be replaced by many of these new technologies. But if you are the one that is the one that controls the digital technology, by the fact that you study, STEM, science, technology, mathematics, then you'll be able to work from wherever in the world. And remember, because the world has become digital, that means, and now because of COVID, we all learn how to work remotely. I work remotely. Before COVID, ConsenSys is a remote-only company. I sit in Cape Town. ConsenSys has offices all over the world, but it's registered in America. And it can be done. It doesn't matter where you live. You could live in a township in the middle of the Sahara, and you can still work for ConsenSys, as long as you've got access to the internet. So imagine the freedom for women. Let's assume women have babies. They can stay home, look after the children, and they can still have an amazing job, like I have, to work for a company that is making a difference in the Web 3.0. And as we know, what is the big thing about Web 3.0? Is that in Web 2.0, you could only read and write. But Web 3.0 is you read, you write, and you own. Now what you produce, you can own. I can produce my art, my music, my whatever I want to produce, but I own it without having to go through an intermediary. Don't get me started about the intermediaries and how the intermediaries are getting most of the money. When you publish a book, the publisher gets 80% of the money and you get 20%. And it's your brain, your time, your energy. But the publisher, the distributor, no? Music, do you know about Spotify? I love Spotify, but I believe that they are underpaying the artists, and so forth and so forth. So once and for all, we want to eliminate the intermediary, have the blockchain that has the provenance that checks where things go and who owns what, and give you the freedom to choose to do whatever you want in this digital world in the Internet of Value. So you tell me if this is not a technology that is going to change the world, and it's up to women to choose to use it. They have to choose, and they have to stop listening to the old paradigm of, no, you cannot be a scientist or an engineer. That has to stop.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. I'll let Oge take it from here.
Yes, she said some. Monica, you said something about societal pressures, and I understand that despite the fact that people are getting better, people are learning, people are unlearning, different policies that they have adopted, maybe from childhood or from the previous generations. We understand that gender equality issues, especially in education, is still prevalent in Africa, and so there are some Africans that do not understand because they do not have access to the modern world. They do not know that times are changing, or they do not just want to accept yet. So we understand that blockchain technology can do all these amazing things for the connected, for the educated. However, in Africa, we have some of these issues stemming from, familial, societal, cultural, socialization, where you have some people just not wanting to believe, or, just not wanting to accept policies because they claim it comes from the Western world. Can you share some ways that society can be part of this change that we're clamoring for? Because you said you got access to books to read, you educated yourself in the middle of the night or for 3 hours and all of that. But some people do not have that access, especially young girls who live with families that do not believe in Western policies or Western education, or making a better part of themselves, better version of themselves. So what do you have to say to societies or to people who want to be a part of this change, who want to adopt blockchain technology or even tech, in general?
In Africa, I don't know if it's in Nigeria, but in South Africa, we have the concept what is called Ubuntu. And Ubuntu means I am because you are. Okay? And what does that mean? Is that if I'm going to achieve success, I have an obligation to help others. Okay? So in the same way, I'm sitting here with you having this conversation to make other women wake up. I'm saying, whoever gets woken up by my conversation, I'm saying, could you please go and wake up someone else? So if I wake up one woman from all the people that are going to listen to this, and that woman then goes and wakes up someone else, then we create the paying forward, the channel, it's like a snowball effect. And that's what I'm saying to everybody. We all, women that have woken up to this blockchain Web 3.0, have an obligation to go and wake up someone else. And with that, we're going to slowly but surely start changing societal norms. And I give you an example. There's a university in South Africa. It's a free university. You know, part of being able to be part of this free university, they choose the poorest of the poorest. You have to prove that you come from a rural area in Africa. You have nothing. You have no computers, nothing. And then they take you out of the rural areas and they put you in this university in the city and they educate you. But the obligation is that every time you go home, you have to prove you created a school to teach someone else what you've learned at university. Do you understand what I'm talking about? This is something that we need to, and I truly believe women, we are very good at this because our natural DNA is to be nurturers. Remember, we love nurturing. We love looking after others. We love educating our children. So if we can educate our children, why can we not extend the love, the education to other women and wake them up and create, circles of influence, circle of women that are going to help each other. I'm sure you all belong, at least I belong to several groups of women that we help each other through support, emotional support, education. Women heal by being with other women. And therefore, that is not only about the emotional support, but also the creation of the awareness of how to achieve financial independence. So I believe that the more we create the movement with the concept of responsibility, I've got a talent. My talent is I know how to manage money. My obligation is to teach others to do the same. So I am obsessed about educating others because I know it's a responsibility that I've been given this talent to give it back to others. And I encourage more women to do the same and to change the narrative and to challenge the societal norm and to challenge the parents that are going to tell them, no, you're going to get married, have children and stop working. That we need to carry on challenging and start saying no, because we want freedom, and freedom is now available, and nothing is going to stop the internet, and nobody's going to stop Bitcoin, because everybody has tried and nobody has achieved it, and therefore this should be a movement that nobody can stop.
All right, that's beautiful. And then just to wrap this up, right? Start wrapping this up. Thanks for that. I think listening to you very closely, what I hear you say is education can be very key, to making blockchain, help achieve gender equality. That promise spread across Africa and even beyond, right? So, is it correct then to say that is what you believe is the most important thing, right? When we're talking about gender equality in Africa and blockchain, education has to be taken as a primary tool, right?
And also the emotional support, very important, because if we're going to challenge societal norms, we need to form groups of women that are going to say to you, you can do this, you got it, don't worry, don't accept what your mom or your dad is telling you. This is the website, look at the newsletters, look at the podcast, just do it. Go to the library and connect to the internet in the library if you have to, but give them the tools, guide them, but help each other. I truly believe that those circles of women can empower each other. In South Africa, we have what is called, I don't remember, but they have these circles they help each other by all contributing to a pot of money, and then they all are able to buy things. It's like they do their own financing without having to go to a bank. I'm sure you've got Yes, like corporate, exactly. And that is the same concept. So instead of just putting money in a little kitty that helps each other, just imagine we all go to a little class of Bitcoin and we all teach each other how to buy and sell and keep the wallets and save it in a core wallet.
All right, that's amazing. And so just on the educational side, right? I listened to you on the the emotional support side of things. On the education side, right? We see this trend of charities, trying to like, and sometimes it feels to me like a lot of them are just doing PR, but charities, targeted at women, women program this, women program that. How efficient do you think those kind of programs are? Or how efficient do you think we need more of those, or do you think they need to be structured maybe differently? I don't know if that makes sense to you.
It does 100%. Remember, I work for the World Bank, so trust me, I know what's going on there. So, so the most important thing is that saying, it takes, you give someone a fish, you feed them for one day. You teach them how to fish, they know how to feed themselves for a lifetime. So the problem with many of the charities is that they're giving fish. I don't want them to give me a fish. I want them to empower me with teaching me how to fish. The only thing we're fighting here, I have to tell you the truth, because I worked for women empowerment all my life. The only shocking thing that I came to conclude at my age is not all women want to be empowered. Okay? When I was CEO of a company, I used to give them education and I pay for courses and do everything to empower women. You know how many women said, you know what, Monica? I'm very happy doing what I do, making tea or being a PA, a secretary. Stop it with your empowerment. So not all women want to be empowered. But you know what? The ones that do, then we need to carry on investing time and energy in the ones that do. So does it make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, it makes sense.
And that is my concern about NGOs.
Right. So what you're saying is that, while NGOs, they can be very efficient, it is not to be charity, it is to be targeted at empowerment. How do you make those people, set them free? How do you set them on their way to freedom? Exactly. All right, great. That is amazing.
Exactly.
One final question from my own side before I hand over to Oge would be, other than finance, right, financial independence and the fact that you can work in the space, right, build career in the space, is there any other application of blockchain in itself that you feel is built to benefit women differently than the legacy kind of systems we have? I mean, I'm thinking about things around maybe identity, ID, right? So I don't know if you have any other ideas.
The two most important ones that we need to resolve for Africa. Well, not three, I think. Well, let's do two. Number one, self-sovereign identity. There are millions of people without an ID. Without an ID, you can do absolutely nothing. So that, I know that many projects that just came back from talking to the people in Cardano, and that is their obsession, self-sovereign identity for Africa. And that, I think, is essential that we achieve, that everybody can have an identity in the blockchain that is immutable, that is accessible wherever you are in the world. And the second one is financial inclusion. We have left 2 billion people out of the banking system. That's fine. You know what? We don't need a bank anymore. So now we can achieve financial inclusion. We can allow them to generate their own income and own finances. I'm coming back to finance, but those two are key for Africa. But let's remember, what people forget is that blockchain is going to affect every industry. Why? Because it's a ledger. So it's a ledger and everybody has to record things in the ledger. No? So now all the ledgers are going to change. So you can talk about supply chain, trade finance, real estate, NFTs. Look at NFTs that you can now generate, sell your own art, sell your own music, sell your own books. No, everything that has already been done that needs an intermediary, that is going to change. And therefore, imagine the potential for all of us in Africa, never again to have to depend of the Western power to come and tell us what we can or cannot do. And they come to Africa, take our resources, and then they resell the final product back to us. What? Stop, guys. It's time for us to say it's enough. We are such a rich continent with so many young people. That's our blessing. The young people are going to understand this so clearly. The older generation, my generation, the baby boomers, write them off. But the younger generations, they're going to be the ones knowing that this is the way forward, and they're not going to allow a no for an answer. So I celebrate young people, and I spend more time educating the young because that's where my hopes are.
All right, amazing. Thank you so much for that. And as you're speaking, something came to my mind, right? Because I use peer-to-peer exchange, all right? And I know that I've transacted a few times, and a woman is on the other side of the trade, right? And in Nigeria, where I am based, traditionally before cryptocurrency and stable coins and all of that, if I want to change money from, say, naira to dollar or dollar to naira, so there are people who call bureau de change, and they're the ones we approach. And this industry is dominated by men, right? And it's just interesting to see that, peer-to-peer exchange, which is growing source of, people exchanging foreign, especially when it comes to stable coins, right? You're seeing like increased women representation. That has happened. That is something that I've witnessed a couple of times. So yeah, I hear you on what you're saying. All right, okay. Do you want to?
That's good to know. I'm glad to hear.
Thank you so far, Monica. But then I see you mentioned some ways that women can empower themselves, women can empower other women, providing emotional support. And I see that you are really, trying to drive gender equality through financial inclusion. But then one thing we cannot take away from all of this is that we have government, we have policies that keep our society the way they are, that help to drive or run our society. And I understand that you are originally Uruguayan, but you live in South Africa. I mean, you are much more South African than even some other South Africans, right? But then I would like to ask, are there specific ways that you've seen the South African government try to drive gender equality through blockchain? Because I understand that the government of South Africa has been, leaning towards crypto, a little bit. So I haven't seen any gender equality projects, and then I would like to know if there are any, in the works.
Okay. First of all, South Africa is very advanced in terms of gender equality. I don't know if you know, but our parliament has got an amazing balance of women in many ministerial positions. So I really think that we are very respectful to the fact that we have to have equality. So that's number one. In terms of crypto, also I think that South Africa has made huge progress in terms of the law. It has recognized crypto as a financial instrument. It has regulation. It also, the Central Bank of South Africa in 2018 was one of the first central banks in the world to test central bank digital currencies for the wholesale, and then they did additional proof of concept. So I really believe that South Africa is a very advanced country in having the rule of law, because if you think about it, one of the things that are affecting crypto is the lack of regulation. But in South Africa, I think that we are quite advanced in having certainty how to tax it, how to regulate it. But what has never been done is to say, okay, now we need to empower more women using crypto. No. But because the natural reaction of South Africans is gender equality, I think that that's going to come naturally. There won't be a need to say, we need to do more gender equality, because the gender parity, it's already here. We don't feel disempowered anymore. We're quite empowered as women in South Africa. Even the boards, the board that I run had 50% women. Most of the staff members at the company I run were women. So, you know what? The only thing that we need is more role models, because I think that the reason why the company I run attracted so many good professional women was because I was there. They could see that I could be the CEOs and I could have a family, and I could run a company. So then they knew that the policies I was going to apply in the company would be woman friendly. And therefore, it needs more role models and more women to actually say, you know what? Let me show you how this technology will give you the power that you want. So that's why these types of podcasts and conversations are essential in waking up and changing the narrative that women can actually become completely independent.
All right, that sounds very interesting. I wish I could say the same for Nigeria because I do not exactly feel that way. But thank you very much, Monica. One more question. So you have listed these visions, you've laid out these visions for gender equality in Africa through blockchain, including the support, and you've also stated that you've also narrowed it down to South Africa where you live. But then we understand that in Africa generally, there are some challenges that we face. Like you said, you said you were working at the World Bank. I don't know if there was this interview or other videos, because I've watched a couple of videos of you on YouTube, and you mentioned that trying to send money down to Africa for some projects, and then you realize that the money is missing, right? Without any trace or anything like that. I'd like to ask, what are some of the challenges to Africa achieving some of these visions that you've laid out, to drive gender equality, using blockchain?
I'll give you an example. One of the first use cases that we did, to prove the technology, was actually in Nigeria. What happened was that the World Bank was sending money to Nigerian villages to buy vaccines, not COVID, that was before COVID, just normal vaccines, for the clinics. The money was given to an intermediary that he had to go and buy the vaccines. And guess what? He wouldn't buy the vaccines. So the money would never get to where it should go. That's in the normal course of event in terms of the corruption and all of the things that happen in Africa. But now you've got blockchain. What happens in blockchain? You put the money in a technology that can track exactly where the money goes. And you know exactly that the money will go directly to the clinic, and that clinic gets empowered to buy the vaccines, and the money would only be released with the proof that the vaccines have been bought. So that's why blockchain is excellent for provenance, to check where the money goes. And therefore, we will reduce the amount of intermediaries and fraud and corruption in all the procurement processes, which has become a national sport in most of our countries. No? Where is the corruption? In procurement. The bigger the project, the more the corruption. No? Look at the state of affairs in South Africa with our electricity. Our electricity provider is running out of money and running out of electricity because all the projects were full of corruption and the money disappeared. But imagine if every time the money was put into a project for procurement of a power station, every taxpayer through the internet could track where the money went. And if the money disappears, you know exactly who stole it. So then all that corruption could get reduced. So it's much bigger than just gender equality. It's what is right for society. And it's to tell the world, it's enough with your corruption. We are going to support you, but you're going to have to prove to me that the money goes to where it should go. So, yeah. So, you see what I'm saying? Yes, gender is incredible. It's essential. But this technology that Satoshi envisioned was to say, never again should the world face a financial crisis like in 2008. We want to empower every individual to become self-sovereign. What does it mean? You control not only your money, your degree, your ID, your investment, your proof of ownership of property, your art, your music belongs to you, and you will share it when you want to. And you will not have to use Facebook or Google or all of these things. You will be able to choose to share the data when you choose. Just imagine how powerful the message to our children will be, saying you are self-sovereign. You will be all-powerful. You just need to learn how to use this technology.
All right. It sounds like the real definition of democracy: literal power to the people, without
exactly.
Any. Yeah. Thank you very much,
Monica. It really is.
I'd like to ask.
It really.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. That's true. That's true. Thank you so much. Sharon, do you have any extra question that you'd like to ask her?
No, no, I think she's been very marvelous, and thanks for the privilege and opportunity to speak with you today.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
mean,
Thank
just
you.
the
Thank
way I
you.
usually like to end my conversations is there something you want to add? Because I feel like sometimes you come up here and then you probably prepare to say something, and we probably didn't ask that. So, is there something that you think it's important to like put out there that you just on the last note?
The only thing I want to say is this is quite profound. Do you know that the only thing you regret in your deathbed is what you haven't done? You don't regret what you did. You regret what you haven't done. So my message to all women is don't have any fears. Just do it. Everything's available in the internet. Join groups of women like you that believe in self-empowerment and don't take no for an answer by no one. Not your husband, not your father, not your mother, no one. You can do this and you got this. So yeah, so believe, I always say, if you can dream it, you can do it. And now the internet gives you exactly the tools for free. You don't need to go to Harvard to learn how to do this. It's all available in the internet.
Oh, okay, that's truly profound. Thank you so much for that. Right. I mean, so thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Right. It's been a privilege. We can't wait to make a story out of this.
Beautiful. And a privilege it was mine.
Right, great.
Thank you. Thank
And
you
hopefully we can have this conversation over and over and over again. I mean, not just gender equality, because what we're trying to do at Mariblock, and I think we are the first to be doing this in Africa right now, is to, because much of the blockchain and crypto industry is riding on the Western narrative right now, and we want to change that, right? We want Africa to have its own narrative.
Yes.
Because for us, crypto is not just a tool of anarchy, right? It is a tool of freedom. It is must have. And you said something very early in the call, right? We've been excluded from the global financial system, right? I've been working I'm a pretty young man, but I've been working for like 12 years now. First of all, I started out as a freelance writer and getting paid I was working for American companies. I missed out on opportunities just because I don't have a PayPal account, right? Right here in Nigeria. And I mean, it's a lot better now, but there are still those friction. It's still the easiest way for me to get paid right now to accept cryptocurrency because it is borderless, right? So we want to, foster that conversation, inform regulators, inform businesses, everybody, inform individuals, right? We just want to stand in that middle. So we would continue having this conversation over calls like this, over conferences. So we would love to have you on and on again here.
Beautiful. And the last thing I want to say is that I immigrated from South America to South Africa. The change was very traumatic. Now I live here. I love this country. But I know how traumatic it is. So why should people have to go and, let's say, work in Silicon Valley when you can sit in your country, the country of your birth, with your family, and work for a Silicon Valley company or any company in the world? You don't have to travel anymore. You don't have to uproot yourself. And that's what COVID taught us, that remote work can be done. It doesn't matter. And you don't have to wait for that visa or that permission to go to a country to work when you can stay at home and do the same work that you do for that company remotely. Yeah. And therefore, it's another way that freedom has been achieved. And also for the employer, they're going to be able to, because the cost of living in South Africa is cheaper than America, the salary I earn is much less than the salary they have to pay in America. So I'm a great deal for them. And I'm happy because in terms of the cost of living, it's a good salary. Right. Isn't it true? So it's a win-win to everybody. Yeah. So we need to stop thinking that you need a visa and that you need to uproot yourself. Yeah. You can stay home, raise a family with your extended family, and be happy in your home environment.
All right. Yeah, that is amazing because, I mean, when you think about it really, what blockchain, what internet is in its essence is that it turns the world into a global village, right? You're right there in South Africa. We can talk in real time like this. I've never been to South Africa. Right. So, but And internet has enabled us to just connect over a chat, and then now we can see each other,
Yeah.
right? And it has done that for trade. It has done that for commerce. It has done that for, now the turn is it's doing that for finance in terms of cryptocurrency. And I think remote work is also going to be a big part of the future. So yeah, that's because I mean, you made a very big point there, right? So thank you so much. We would keep in touch. We would send you this is definitely going live on the 8th of March, right? It's part of our series where we are trying to, and for us, as you can see, we just don't want to say praise women who are working in this space. We want to have conversation about how do we get more women involved here, right? I am proud to tell you that I'm and many times, maybe when a man said this, it could sound patronizing, but because of my background, right? And I tell people that if I do not have a mom that is independent or that can be independent, my life probably would have turned out very differently, right? So it saddens me right from when I was in high school, right? It saddened me to see my mates talk about, oh, after school they're getting married. And I'm like, do you have an idea how crazy men can be, right? Do you have an idea? so that is why I'm very passionate about this, and I can't wait to see your words inspire more women to get into the space. Thank you once again for your time.
Wow. Very nice to meet you, and I hope you come and visit me in South Africa.
I hope so too, very soon. All right. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Cool. Nice to meet you.
Bye.
You too. Thank you very much.